Good afternoon. Thank you for being here at Daytona International Speedway. Joined on the stage here with Winston Kelly, the Executive Director of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. We're excited to be here to announce the winner of this year's Squier Hall Award for NASCAR Media Excellence. Before we do that, just really want to say again how important this award is to NASCAR. We recognize very clearly the important role the media has played and will play in building the sport and, most importantly, serving our great fans. And we hear it all the time how valuable your contributions are to the discussion, and that just makes our sport better. So it's an important award for us. This will be the fifth winner. Of course, the award is named after the legends Ken Squier and Barney Hall. And in our last 2 years, the award was presented to Chris Economaki, and last year to the great Tom Higgins. There are 8 very deserving nominees this year, voted on a panel of NASCAR executives, representatives from the NASCAR Hall of Fame, media, PR reps, and others throughout the industry. Before we make the announcement, Winston, maybe you can share how important this is to the Hall of Fame.
Well, personally, you know how excited I was when you told me that NASCAR had come up with this concept, because having grown up around the media and knowing how important it is for the media to be a conduit to our race fans. But the race fans are very passionate about this award, just like they are who goes in the NASCAR Hall of Fame and the Landmark Award for contributions to NASCAR. And one of the things that is very interesting to me, where Kevin Schleicher, our exhibits director, Buzz McKim, our historian who's with us, placed this award, it's between 2 areas that fans can be a part of the media, either recreate a radio or a television broadcast. And the number of kids that seem to enjoy that, I think they're a little less focused on the award itself, but seeing the fans that come through who have been fans for a while, being able to enjoy that, and the passion that we hear from it when they write in, either on social media or to our website and things. So it's become a very critical part, and one that I'm personally passionate about and glad to be a part of.
One last point. I think also if you ask Ken, Barney, or Tom how they feel about it, they're very appreciative, very proud. So with that, I'm proud to announce that the 2016 recipient of the Squier Hall Award for NASCAR Media Excellence is Steve Byrnes. Steve worked in our sport for over 30 years, most recently 15 years with Fox, and the latest role was a play-by-play announcer for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. As most of you know, Steve recently passed. He was a voter for this year's upcoming NASCAR Hall of Fame class. He was very proud of that and was able to cast his vote before passing. So we're thrilled that we will be able to honor Steve Byrnes and his legacy next January. Winston, can you talk about your relationship with Steve and his contributions to the sport?
Well, personally, I was privileged to be able to work with him so much on pit road and be a friend with him as well as a colleague, and we exchanged stories in the garage area, on pit road, had a lot of good laughs together. And the thing that I remember about Steve from a professional standpoint is 2 things. One, he had such respect from everybody in the garage and the competitors because of the way he conducted himself. He knew he was reporting the story. He wasn't the story. But he's one of the few people I've never heard anything bad said about. And that's difficult in an industry like this that we travel together so much. But the other part I think about him is how he conducted himself, not just with the illness that he had and the great class that he did. I'll never forget the weekend before he passed, actually the Thursday night before he passed away. And I didn't know he had gone back in the hospital on that Thursday. I'm at dinner and I get a text from Steve, and he wants to know where there are good places to eat around the NASCAR Hall of Fame because his nephew was going to be going to a prom at the Hall of Fame. And that's what he was interested in. So I told him I was at dinner and I'd send him some because I wanted to send him some links as to, what was walking distance, figuring that the young ladies might be in high heels and what would be driving distance. So we texted back and forth, and I sent him that night and then heard back from him both Friday and Saturday in both text and emails, and again, did not know he had been readmitted to the hospital. And I think that the purpose of saying that, that's Steve Byrnes. As sick as he was more worried about somebody else and worried about his nephew, who actually shares a name as his nephew Dylan, and my nephew's name is Dylan. And we had a great hug about that at the services. But, you know, Steve, as sick as he was worried about somebody else and how he could help somebody else.
Very good. I want to let you know that within the half hour before we made this announcement, I did inform Karen and Bryson. They were very, very thrilled and excited and honored by it. And also Eric Shanks at Fox Sports, very proud of Steve as a representative of our great partners at Fox. And we think this will be a very popular win in our sport. With that, we'll take a couple questions if you have them. Feel free to raise your hand. And, well, I guess now you can hear me. We'll open it up to questions if you have any. Right over here to Holly up front.
I'll do it by coming right now.
Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. You kind of alluded to this, but, you know, maybe if you could just talk a little bit more about some of the qualities that this award, you know, embodies and what Steve specifically, you know, did that put him above the rest for this year anyway.
You want to go first?
Go ahead. I think it embodies, you know, you guys came up with the award. And I know Brett doesn't like to take credit for anything, and he and Mike and Brian came up with the award. And I think what they came up with, to me, embodies Steve Byrnes.
You know, listen, we're very proud of this because, you know, we're all sports fans. And a lot of us never had the ability to play, so we got connected to the sport through what great writers and TV people and photographers did to bring the sport to life to us. And if you look at the first four honorees of this, it's the Mount Rushmore of NASCAR media, in my opinion. And, you know, a lot of people got connected to NASCAR through the pictures that Ken Squier painted to them with his words, that Barney Hall did over the radio, that Tom did. It's just such great writing. And Chris Economaki. Steve, I think there's a little piece of all of them in how Steve approached this. I think Winston was right. What you heard most often after Steve passed especially is how he treated people and how the respect that he had for his peers, for the competitors, for the sport itself, and how much he loved it. And, you know, it's all a package of those things that when we met as a nominating committee, it wasn't a long discussion. I think as we all felt like Steve represented all the things that the award was meant to honor. He's a great journalist too. You know, we talk about how great of a guy he was and how he treated people and whatnot. He was a great journalist and he was real. You know, a lot of jokes about his interview with Tony and the no thank you. He was a real guy, and this mattered to him, and he cared about our sport, and that was reflected in his work.
And he very quietly, to me, he did his homework, and there's so many hardworking people in the business, but he did his homework every day, you know, for Race Hub, or whether it was for went back in the old days when he and Ned did the NASCAR Winston Cup show, and then for Fox Sports. He was a consummate professional, but he was as diligent as anybody, making sure he had things accurate.